I'm Wendy from Shiny Happy World, and this is the new Funny Faces Quilt Block of the Month Club. He's a cute little tiger, and I'm going to show you how to make him in this video. But first, before I forget, I want to tell you how to get the pattern if you are interested in making one yourself. So right now, it's September 2019, and he is exclusive to the Funny Faces Quilt Block of the Month Club. So if you're a member of the club, you get this pattern for free. He's available right now in the clubhouse for download. And he's going to be exclusive to the Funny Faces Club until the middle of October. At some point in November, he's going to be available in the main shop at Shiny Happy World for anybody to buy. So that's where you get the pattern. Here's how to make him. Okay, to start with, you're going to want to cut out all of the pieces and fuse them to the back side of your fabric. And when I in the pattern instructions, I tell you to do a rough cut first. And just to clarify what that means, you can see on this piece here, well, let me get one that's a little bit darker here. All right, this one here, this inner ear, you can see it more closely. So rough cut just means don't cut right on the lines, cut a little bit outside the lines. And you want to leave a little bit extra room wherever there is a dotted line there. So these pieces, because there are a lot of pieces on this tiger and I wanted you to be able to print it out on just a single sheet of fusible adhesive, they're pretty close together, but there's enough room for you to give a little extra room past the dotted lines. So you're going to cut all the pieces out, rough cut, and then fuse them to your fabric. And there's a lot of pieces to this tiger. So on this piece, you can see I've got the head and 2 ears. On this piece, this is a lighter color fabric. I've got the tummy and his muzzle and 2 inner ears. And then I've got on solid black, I've got a nose and 2 eyes. And then on a darker fabric, what would be the black stripes, if you were doing realistic colors, I've got a bunch of stripes. And on the last piece here, this is the regular body color for this pink one, I've got just his shoulders. So that's all the pieces that you're going to be cutting out. Fuse them to the back side of the fabric, and then you're going to do the clean cut, and let me show you what that looks like. For the clean cut, you're going to cut directly on any solid lines, and you're going to leave a little bit extra past any dashed lines. Those are pieces that are either going to go into the seam allowance at the bottom of the block, or like in these ears, those are pieces that are going to tuck underneath other pieces. So this little bit at the bottom of the ear is going to tuck behind the head. So I'm going to show you the example with a more realistic colored tiger. So let me get this set. So I'm using a rectangular piece of fabric here because I may use this block for some other things, but he'll fit in a square. So you peel the back off of your fabric. And you can see that shiny back, that is where the glue is now stuck to the back of the fabric. So you're going to want to lay that first piece down, and you're going to want to line it up with the raw edge at the bottom of your block. After we get his shoulders, we're going to work on his tummy. So the tummy piece just goes right in the middle of his chest. Also, that bottom flat edge lines up with the bottom edge of your block. And the next thing we're going to put in is his face. Now, before you peel the paper off of the face, you want to transfer some of the markings. I don't bother transferring the stripes because you can just put stripes in. It's not super critical where they go, but I think that the placement of the eyes is really, really important to the overall look of the block. And I really fuss about where those are positioned in the face when I'm doing the design. So I always transfer that then to the fabric. Normally I just use a black marker and just a black fine tip Sharpie, nothing fancy. But in this case, the muzzle is going to be white because tigers have a little bit of a white face. And I didn't want my black Sharpie line to show through the white fabric. So I used just a white fabric pencil, tracing pencil for that. So you want to do that before you peel the paper off, because while the paper is on the back, you can hold this up to a window and you can see those lines through it, even when it's a pretty dark fabric. Once you peel the paper off, you lose that guide. So we're going to peel that paper off. And then, if you'll recall, there at the top of the shoulders, there was a dotted line. That's because those shoulders tuck behind the bottom of the head. And you could turn this at an angle if you want to. In fact, I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to turn them a little bit to this side. That's going to be cute. Next up, I'm going to put some ears in place. So I've labeled these ear 1 and ear 2. It really doesn't matter which side you put them on, but that'll help you get the ear linings in where they go. So that's ear 2. And here we've got ear 1. And now I'm going to put their little inner ears in there. So this is inner ear 2. And 2 was the one on that side. So we're going to just tuck that in there. Hang on, I tucked that back too far. There we go. It's a nice rounded tiger ear. And now I've got ear 1, or inner ear 1. Tigers have little white, pretty clear white on the insides of their ears. So there's ear 1 and ear 2. Let's go ahead and put the muzzle in there. So the muzzle is another one that I traced, and I used a black Sharpie for this because it's all going to be stitched over or appliqued over in black. So I've got just inside the nose, you can see the nose is actually quite big, and I've drawn a smaller triangle inside the nose just so I know where to place it, but then I drew right on the line for the mouth because I'm going to stitch right over that black line. And just like I was talking about with the nose, so this isn't exactly the edges of the muzzle, it just gives me an idea where it goes. That way I don't have to be super fussy about where I place it. Now I've got one eye, and I've numbered the eyes 1 and 2, but they're identical, so it's just to help you keep track of what you've got. There's number 2. Now he's coming to life. I always love the moment when I put the eyes in. Next up, I'm going to give you his nose. And just make sure that the bottom point of the triangle is lined up with that line there, and that nose is going to look just right. So now we've got a whole bunch of spots to do. And I did number these spots. I started at the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and went all the way around this way. So that's just going to help me match them up so that the angles look right. So I may end up just shifting these around a little bit since I did not give myself markings, but you've got a reference photo, a reference drawing in your pattern that shows you, for example, that there are 4 stripes on each of the shoulders and 3 on the sides of his face and 3 at the top of his head. So this is number 3. And probably should have pre-peeled all these pieces. So there's number 4. Now because I tipped his head, 4 is going to need to go underneath that. There we go, that looks good. And now we're going to do number 5, starting up on his cheek. So number 5 goes near the bottom here. All of these stripes point into the center. So number 6 is right around here. So I may shift this up a little bit closer. And then we'll do number 7. And now we've got across the top of his head, number 8. And then number 9. Now you could do these stripes in solid black, but I really like to only use solids on the nose and the eyes. I like to have all of the other parts have a little texture to them. I really like these tone-on-tone textures. So there we go. Just lining up the edges I don't mind if they go a little bit over the top of the face, but I don't like them to fall in. I don't want to see any orange at the top of that stripe. So that was number 10. Now we've got 11. We're going to start going down the other side of his face. And then 12. And 13. There we go. And now down the other side of his body. 14. 15. 16. And one more, 17. And I'm actually going to shift these guys down just a little bit. So this is your last chance to kind of rearrange things to get the details exactly where you want them. Because once you fuse it down, there is no going back. So I am happy with that. I think I want his ears to be a little bit further apart. Yeah, maybe push this one back just a smidge more. All right, I'm happy with how he looks, so now I'm going to take him over and I'm going to fuse him in place following the directions on whatever brand fusible adhesive you use. I use Heat and Bond Lightweight for all of my quilts. And then I will do all of the outline stitching and I'll bring him back and I'll talk through the outline stitching with you and then we'll be done. Okay, so here's the finished block and there's a lot of pieces as we already talked about. But it actually did not take terribly long to outline and I was able to do almost all of it without any stopping and starting and tying off knots. So let me show you the path that I took. I started off by going around his head and I started just inside the shoulder here. So I went once around his head and I've been doing a scribbly method where I go around all the lines 3 times because I want that kind of sketchy sketchbook kind of look to it. You could do this in a single pass everywhere and just use a thicker thread, but I went 3 times around. So I started here just inside the shoulder, went around once, continued around the second time, and as soon as I got to the far end of a stripe, I went 1, 2, 3, and then went around that base of the stripe again and until I passed the second one. 1, 2, 3, continued around that one, up into this one, 1, 2, 3, continued around that one. Now here around the ear, I went around till I got past the bottom of the ear and then went 1, 2, 3, and then went again until I got to the inner ear, 1, 2, 3, and then continued on and did the same thing with these stripes. Continued past it, 1, 2, 3, continued past it, 1, 2, 3. Same thing with this ear, went all the way to the far side of the ear and then went 1, 2, 3, passed to the far side of the inner ear, 1, 2, 3, and then continued on, passed to the far side of this stripe, 1, 2, 3, on to the far side of this stripe, 1, 2, 3, and then to the far side of this stripe, 1, 2, 3. Then I continued around. So that finished the second trip around the face. Now I've done all of the accessory parts, the little extra bits have already been around 3 times, so I just did one more pass around the 3rd time. So when I got back to where I started, I continued on and then went down the edge of the shoulders once, and then on my way back, I did the same thing. I came up to the far end of the stripe, 1, 2, 3, and then went up to the far end of the stripe, 1, 2, 3, up to the far end, 1, 2, 3, up to the far end, 1, 2, 3, and then up to the top. That completed the second pass, and then for my 3rd pass, I went down to the bottom. Then I just skimmed along the edge of this piece. You don't have to do outline stitching on the edge here because this is going to get caught in your seam allowance. So I just did a little bit along the bottom here, until I got to the tummy patch, and then I went 1, 2, 3, and then did the same thing, skimmed along the bottom of this one until I got to this side of the shoulder, went all the way up once, and on the second pass came down to the far side of the stripe, 1, 2, 3, came down to the far side of the stripe, 1, 2, 3, down to the far side, 1, 2, 3, and down to the far side, 1, 2, 3, and then down to the bottom. That was completing the second pass. Then I went up to the top for the third pass and then tied a knot. That is the first time I had to tie a knot, and I got almost all of his entire body done. The only thing left to do are around each individual eye, and I only do them once because it's black thread on a black background, so you can't see it anyway. And then I did 3 times around the muzzle, tied off, and then I went once around the nose, and again, since it's black on black, I only do once, and I start just before the point of the nose. So I go around once, and then I continue going around until I get to this downstroke. And the way I do a mouth, when it's this kind of mouth where it's connected with a little downstroke line, I go down, and I'm stitching right on my Sharpie line here. Then I go over to one side, pivot, put my needle down and pivot, and then go back over it for a second pass and continue the other half of the smile, pivot, come back to the center, and then back up to the top. And then because I wanted, that's 2 passes, 2 complete trips over it, but I wanted it to be a little extra thicker than that, so I did the same thing again. I just turned it, pivoted, turned right back around, went down, up, up, back down, and up, and then tied a knot inside the nose, and that is how you outline the tiger. So this is the tiger in kind of realistic colors. This is, all of these are colors from the Warm Neutrals fabric bundle, and this is one of the pastel greens off of the Rainbow Sherbet fabric bundle. But I wanted to show you the pink version too. So here's the same tiger, pink on pink on pink, and if you decide to do it with kind of tone on tone colors like this, you want your medium color to be the body and the main part of the ears. You want your lightest color to be the belly, the muzzle, and the inner ears. Those are all places where tigers are white. And then you want the darkest color to be the stripes around the edge. You could also do black stripes or a very, very dark gray stripes and any other color of the rainbow. So a traditional tiger would be orange, but you could do a yellow tiger or a blue tiger, any of those with a main color and white and black, just like that traditional tiger. So that's how you make the tiger block. I hope you had fun with them. I'll see you next month. Bye.